Right. So now in this lesson, we've basically just gone through how to make this logo, or this isn't even really the logo because we haven't brought in what we need to from Illustrator, but just making stuff inside of here and doing some basic animation, which is kind of neat. So if I wanted to render this out, um, then what I would do is I would go in and we need to make a movie of this. So we first off, we have to make sure once again, is this the length that we want? And I have it at about 6 seconds. Kind of zooms in, plays, and then closes up. And the only reason it's starting over is because it's set to loop. And so it's looping right back onto itself by default and playing again. So the way I would spit this out as a movie, first I want to save it. Let's do a save as. And I had saved it as AE Demo 1 Animation Text. And let's do it Demo 2. And what I want to do now is create a movie. So there's a shortcut, but if I were to forget the shortcut, if we go through here, um, we see under composition, layer, we have all this stuff, but I actually have an option. If we go under composition, we have add to render queue or add to media encoder queue. So I can either render out a movie out of this or I can do it out of the render queue. For right now, let's just do it out of the render queue. I'll show you both ways. But for the first one, let's do it out of the render queue, which is in After Effects. So that would be Control M. If you're on a Mac, I believe it's Command M, but double check to be sure. So add composition, add to render queue. And now you'll notice this little box is opened up, the render queue, and here is my movie that's queued up, the composition that I had selected when I told it to do this. But before I can hit render, I want to just double check a few things, and this is going to be relative to what we want to do with, like how we want to turn things in. Okay. So depending on your computer and depending on what you have installed, you may have different options. And if that's the problem, just ask me or the instructor of what are the best settings for your machine, but don't stress over it. So you'll be turning in movies, not the After Effects file, because the After Effects file needs the project. The project needs all the folders, and those things are going to get mighty big. You're going to be turning in movies. So first, let's just go down the row. All these things that are blue are things that we can change. Best settings, if I click on that, yes. So the reason I click this one is because if I'm playing this in less resolution and half speed or whatever it is I've set it for, I don't want my movie to be that. So I go into here and I say, oh, I want best quality, full resolution, and everything else should be the same. So this, I don't want to typically change anything else. That is it. I just want to make sure that those guys are on. Hit OK to that. Sweet. This is the output. So when I click on this, this is what kind of movie do I want to make. So we're talking more about this, but let's glaze over this so we have a good idea. So format. The format is the file type. What is the file type? It's set to AVI, which is the Windows movie file format. QuickTime is the Mac one. Um, just to be consistent, and then there's a whole host of other ones, but let's use QuickTime for this one. And when we do QuickTime, in the video output, with all this should stay the same, but over here in the format options is where you choose your codec. And so then that stands to reason what the heck is a codec? A codec is basically what's used to compress your movie file. So let's take a step back just so you can see. If I go back to AVI and I go to format and it says none, you see I have a totally different set of codecs. So we're going to go to QuickTime and we are going to make sure that it stays animation is fine. Audio, we're not going to worry about. I don't really have audio. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, bringing in audio, but just for right now, this is fine. And on that note, so it's RGB, millions of colors, yes, yes, yes. I'm not resizing it, I'm not cropping it, and the audio is set to this. Now, if I don't have audio, I don't need to have this on, but if I do drop in audio, I would just put it here. So auto means it's going to try and decide, like, is there audio or not, and then if it isn't, it'll drop it out. And that's a good thing because essentially audio takes up space and it makes the file size much bigger. So just remember that either auto or I can manually like shut this off and on. And that way I just override and say, yeah, I don't want you to think about it, just no sound whatsoever. But auto should do it, but we'll just do it here because I didn't put any sound yet. So just to make it, and then we'll hit OK to that. And then you notice this name changes. Here's my output. So in my output, I click on this and I say, what folder do I want to put this to? And right now, I'm going to spit this to the folder that I created, my project folder just for now. And I'm just going to right click and create a new folder. I could click it here. And let's call this one uh, renders. And what that means is that I'm just going to render stuff and put it into this folder. So, motion graphics intro.mov, and we should be fine. And let's just say save. And now that that's all done, everything is set and double checked. I just go over here and I hit render. And yay, it's all done. Now, we can go in and see if that actually worked the way it was supposed to. And that's the fun part. So let's go test it. And we also want to take a look and see exactly how big is that file. So here's my folder. There's renders. There's my movie file. It's 10 megabytes. So bigger than it needs to be, but let's check that out. So this is another thing for MOVs. Depending on your computer may not be able to read an MOV because the Windows Media Player doesn't like it, and the Mac doesn't like AVI. They don't play well. So if I double click on this and it loads up, it may or may not load into the movie, and there it goes. It's not giving me that. If you're on a Mac, it'll do it automatically. So what I'm going to do, and what you should probably do on yours, is there's one more piece of software that would be good for us to get. And if I go to a web browser and I type in VLC Media Player, there it is, VLC download. Let's go to that. VLC is a free media player that allows you to play all sorts of media files. So if you get this, you can run it through VLC to play it and see. So if I take this, I right click on it, and I already have it installed, and I go to open with, there's VLC right there. And I will just, or I could do QuickTime because I have QuickTime, but let's do VLC Media Player. And now we see it opens up. Oh, it's saying, hey, there's a new version. Ignore you. And now that one looks a little weird. We'll have to take a look at that. Let's try QuickTime Player. Once again, QuickTime Player on the Mac or on the Windows. You can download it. I'll give you the link. But it takes a long time to load up. Like I said, these guys do not like playing with each other. So it's like I said, oh yeah, open it up in QuickTime, and it is still loading on a pretty monster computer. So it's like, dude, you're killing me. What's up? And what will happen is probably two versions will pop up later. So let me show you the other way of sending it out. So that's just sending it out as a movie. And you shouldn't have too many problems. If you do, let me know. But we're going to do it one more time because QuickTime's being a bit of a bear, and we're just seeing some weirdness. So when I play it in here, everything's running well. Up and look, yep, I knew it. Multiple versions. And it's playing fine in here. So, yay! I'll give you links to both QuickTime and VLC. I just think I just looks like that popped up. I need to update it, and that's why it's acting weird. So no big worries. So if you get the newest version. But let's go through the other way. So I'm going to do this one more time. Let's go in, and I'm going to go to composition. And either I can add it to the render queue, or I can just, and there's actually a button if you go to the render queue that says queue in AME. And that's Adobe Media Encoder. So when I dropped it into here, I could have rendered it. I rendered it out of After Effects, but I could have just gone straight into click this, which would open up Media Encoder. So let's do it again. I'm going to go back and make sure that you are in the right box. So in other words, my demo is not the one I want to render. It's this one. Okay. So let's make sure we're in the right composition, which is the one that's holding the other one, because otherwise you're going to miss that ending part that's right here, because it only exists, see, in that one. So let's make sure we're in this one. Excuse me. We're going to go to composition, and we'll add this straight to Media Encoder queue. Now what this is going to do is it's going to take this and it's going to bounce out and load up Media Encoder so that we can spit out a movie out of this. So Media Encoder is basically a program that is just designed to render out movies or um, change their compression or their format or their settings. You can do lots of things in it. But so here it is. It popped up in the queue. Here's something that was from a previous one. And so you see I had stopped it. I could select that one or, select that particular job, and I can just remove it. Yes. And then we have this one. And you see it brought it in with all the little settings, and I can go in and yes, I want to use H.264. And when I click on this, what this does is that if I want to change those settings, here's where I'd go in. So I do want to save this out as a H.264 format. And this will save it out as an MPEG-4. This is a different file type because Media Encoder has a lot of other ways. So this is why you want to install Media Encoder, and it'll make life a lot easier. So what we want to see is what this guy is going to do. Audio, once again, it's inside of there, but there is no audio. So export audio, we're just going to say nah. And that will keep the file size down. So video, let's just keep everything the way it was. And all the other stuff we don't really need to worry about. We're not going to use a lookup table or any of this other stuff that we haven't really talked about. And we can see what our movie is right here. Okay. I could even crop it down if I only wanted to render out a section of it. So, but I'm not going to do that in here. So basically that's it. I went in, I modified a preset, I turned off, I don't have audio, and we're just going to render it. So I'm going to hit OK, and I made a slight change. Here is the info here. And this guy is going straight into where we needed to. Let's just double check. So yeah, it's going into here, a files demo. So it's putting it in a subfolder is where it wants to go into the files of where the original After Effects file is. So it's naming it based on that folder, and then it's going to spit out the composition name, and it's this time it's an MPEG-4, which is cool. So that's all good. If I want to switch it to that render folder, I'm just going to go back up and then go into renders and then save. And now it's just going to go straight into the renders folder. And once that's all done, everything is all lovely. I just hit here. Bam, look how much faster that one was. That was pretty quick. Now that MPEG-4 you're not going to have a problem with. And oh my god, look at that. 10 megabytes for the original one. 363 kilobytes, which isn't even one of these. So way better. Double click, and this guy plays, yay, in everything, and it looks awesome, and it's a small file size. So Media Encoder is the way to go, but there are times you want to do it in one or the other. But now you know two ways of rendering out. So I would try. You can experiment, but Media Encoder, boom, boom, boom. Just make sure you also have that installed. And that is the file that the movie file that you would turn in.